Hello there, and welcome back to the Codex. Today, upon viewer request, we are going to be talking about how to do Netracells, solo in this case. Now let's go ahead and hop right into that. I do recommend using a Speed Nova, for a handful of reasons. Let's go into my arsenal here, and take a look at the build. Now I will say as a disclaimer, using a Speed Nova does bring its own dangers regarding the enemies being more, well, dangerous, essentially, because you are going to be speeding them up by 75%. That means how fast they move, which is the important part, but also how fast they shoot in melee attacks. So you are literally bumping their DPS by 75%, essentially. So keep that in mind. So here's the build. I'm going to immediately go into Power Donation here. Please, 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 if you're playing Speed Nova, play Power Donation. This is the Speed Nova Aura mod, because it reduces your strength by 30% and increases your squad's strength by 30%, which in this case won't matter because I'm playing solo, but in a team this is amazing, because as a Speed Nova you already have negative strength. You would already be at 40% strength because of overextended, because you're using this, because you have to have negative strength in order to be a Speed Nova, because that's how Nova works. You are using negative strength to be a Speed Nova or positive strength to be a Slow Nova. I have replaced her third ability, which is typically her portal, with Resonator. This is Octavia's ability. It's fantastic for survivability, especially given the fact that you build for so much duration on Nova. And you do have positive range on Speed Nova, specifically. So this is amazing. It's a 55-second, basically, ball that makes enemies turn stupid. They just follow the ball around, their AI turns off, and essentially everyone except for Eximus is going to be just acting like... I was going to say acting like NPCs, but they literally are NPCs, so there you go. As for the rest of the build here, in case you're wondering why I'm using Umbral Fiber, given the fact that she has very little armor, Umbral Fiber does a little more work than you're probably expecting on Nova. And I'm also partially running just to buff the Umbral Vitality, and because I don't really need any other specific mod in this loadout. So, the 310 armor that this gives you is only 50.8% damage reduction, of course, but you are also running Adaptation, which is up to 90% DR for individual damage types, and you're running Null Stars, which currently with my duration, I have 16 Null Stars. It's 5% per star, that's 80% damage reduction. Which, quick note about that is, I am using 2 duration shards in my Nova. Once I make these Tau Forged, that'll be an extra 10% duration, and that will take me from 274 to 284, and that will be just enough duration to bump me from 16 stars up to 17 stars, because the amount of antimatter particles you have scales with duration. And that would be just enough to go from 16 to 17, which would go from 80 to 85% damage reduction. That would also make her a little bit more tankier. Another option you do have, that I'm actually just now thinking about as I record this, is now that more shields is actually better for the current version of shield getting, I suppose you could use Prime Redirection here, and that would slightly help to augment the efficacy of Arcane Aegis, since you would have more shields to be affected by Aegis, like to give you more time basically for this to trigger. And then once this does trigger, you're essentially immortal. So let's actually go ahead and try that out, shall we? We'll definitely keep the Umbral Vitality on, just because I already have, you know, the slot polarized for it. Without another Umbral mod, it gives the same amount of health as regular Vitality, but this is already polarized, so we'll just keep that there. And Molecular Efficient, absolutely essential as well. This is an augment mod for Nova that makes it so that when enemies that are affected by your fourth ability, the Molecular Prime, die, it gives you your stars back. Which is fantastic, because typically your stars have to run out to recast them, which means that towards the low end of the stars, you're not allowed to recast, but you have so little stars that your damage reduction is basically worthless. So this keeps that from happening. It's quite good. Let's go ahead and jump into the mission here. I should also mention, my other shards are casting speed and 2 emerald shards. The 2 emerald shards will make her much better, because she is basically a weapons platform frame that debuffs enemies. So using the 2 corrosive shards makes corrosive builds like my corrosive Occucore or my corrosive Miter perform much better against armored enemies, because it will fully strip their armor off. So to begin Netracells,
what I wouldn't give for dope.
Come over to Tagfer here, and the essential step to make sure that you always get Tau Forge shards is to click on Offer Comfort and make sure that you hug him. You can't skip this step. If you do skip it, you'll only get melee arcane adapters. I promise you. Alright, now that that's done, to actually do the Netracell, click on Netracells here.
Let's go.
And I have already done all of mine for the week, so I won't actually get a reward from this, but that doesn't change the way that the mission works, and I'm still allowed to do it. So it's not a problem. I can still showcase this. Keep in mind the restrictions in Netracell. The enemies do have more health and shields, and that does scale up to 300% with the amount of squad mates that you have. So playing solo is actually a good thing in this case, because it makes the enemies only get the portion of the buff that applies from one person being there, essentially. Respawns are also limited. One of the main things that affects is last gasp, which is the operator ability to revive yourself. So that'll be limited. You can still use it, it's just reducing its efficacy. And then consumables are debuffed to only being able to use once every 3 minutes. Let's click on enter the anchor hold here.
What's his is ours.
And speaking of last gasp, especially when you're doing the solo, keep in mind that you cannot revive here. Let's quickly go over my operator loadout here and talk about that for a moment. So just real quick, my operator arcanes are Magus Lockdown and Magus Melt. Lockdown lets you CC enemies around you by Void Slinging, and then Magus Melt gives you a ton of heat damage to your amp. Then I'm using Eternal Onslaught and Virtuous Strike for basically crit chance and crit damage. If you pair that with a good focus school, like ideally having Last Gasp Unbound, which is this last tier here, so that it's always active no matter what tree you're playing on, and then you have Materite actually be the one that you're running so that you can use Void Strike. You can pop into Last Gasp if you go down, and then pop Void Strike for the 1000% damage bonus, and then you should be able to, even in Netracells, kill those enemies with your amp if it's set up correctly, and revive yourself. If I go down in the mission, I'll showcase that. Let's go ahead and jump into the mission here. I gotta say, this is perhaps the coolest, like, loading scene for any mission I can think of. Now, when you get into the anchor hold here, there's 4 debuffs called King Lifts you have to take. This one makes it so that slain enemies explode when you kill them. This makes you lose energy. This makes you lose health. And this also makes you lose health. So once you grab all of those, the computer over here will be accessible. You gotta go over here. You can hack it either manually or with Cypher like I just did. And then you can access the mission. So there will be 3 different computers that you can optionally hack, which is notated by the white objective markers that you can see here. The white markers is the computers. You see the yellow marker, that is the general location of the vault. Now, you can find the vault without hacking all 3 of these computers. Like, for example, you see the giant search radius that just appeared here, the big yellow zone. It's somewhere inside of there. And every computer that you hack reduces that search radius. So if you had somebody playing with you, like playing as Titania, for example, and flying around super fast, maybe they could just fly straight through the circle and immediately find the vault. And you could skip some of the computer steps. But for this, just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and hack all 3. And also partially just to show you how that works. That way, I can for sure locate the vault and not run around like a chicken with my head cut off. You can see it's quite the travel distance they make you go on some of these tiles. This is why the best way to run these missions, like the most efficient way, which maybe I'll do a separate video on, is to be in at least a 2-man team of, I would say, Nova, a Speed Nova that I'm currently running, and Titania. The Titania is, at the very least, excellent for this opening phase, because she could rapidly fly within her Razor Wing to all 3 of the computers and instantly hack them, essentially, so you can just go straight to the vault. Sorry about that alarm noise in the background there. Just my work alarm going off. And that really speeds up this first part here, if you have a team like that going. And then the Speed Nova, of course, speed up the kill phase, which I will show you in just a moment here. So now that I've hacked all 3, you can see that the exact waypoint of the vault is now located. So I'm now going directly to it. Almost there. This is a beautiful tile set, I must say. Digital Extremes, Warframe, they did a great job on this. So once you get here, go ahead and hit X on that, or whatever your key is, and that'll start the Netracell alert level phase here. Now, you'll notice that on your minimap there's a red circle. You have to kill enemies inside of this red circle to reduce the alert level. Once the alert level gets to 0, that is when the vault will unlock. So please don't be that annoying guy who sits just outside the circle, killing everything as they come running, and you get absolutely no progress. So this is why Speed Nova is so good. Since enemies have to be inside of this circle before they die to count, rushing them in here by making them move 75% faster is the play. Use the Source a little bit here. Absolutely love this weapon. The release of melee influence made this thing just crazy. Now you'll see here, find and destroy the Necramite drone to continue. This is one of those little flying critter things. The mission will not progress until you find and kill this thing. So what you should do is immediately stop killing all the regular enemies and go straight for this. Here it is, it's a Necramite. You just gotta kill it. And then you'll see it goes back to kill enemies to lower the alert level. So you just go back to the same room that you were in, back to the same circle, and continue killing. There's going to be 2 of those Necramite phases in total. So I just killed the first one. There's going to, at some point around the probably 40th% mark, be another Necramite that it wants me to kill. So there we go. So I went down, so I'll do what I was talking about, go in the last grass, pop Void Strike, and then easily get yourself back up. See how easy that was? When you have good gear on your operator, self-resing really is not an issue. And I know this is a video showcasing Nova for this, but I will say, if you don't feel that you have the gear for your operator or your amp, when you're missing arcanes, for example, or you don't have the focus tools upgraded, if you want to do this super safely, just bring Revenant. Just bring the frame that literally can't die. I mean, it's actually that easy. It might take a little longer from, you know, not speeding them up, but if it lets you actually finish the mission, then you gotta do what you gotta do. These Necramechs here, I'll tell you what, they do a lot of damage. Not those ones, but the rogue ones. They're beefy. Make sure you keep their prime up so everybody is constantly rushing to you. Definitely keep that resonator down. That's a huge survivability boon, having the enemies focus on that instead of you. And I won't lie, you can see even with all my defensive layers, it's still, there you go, I went down again. The only reason why it's okay for my case to go down is because, again, it's so easy to self-res with Matter Eye and Last Gasp. But if you don't have that, it's definitely dangerous. Go ahead and throw some miters out here. There we go, right at the 30% mark it seemed to pop the next Necramite. So let's go ahead and go kill that little mechanical bug boy here. There we go, he's dead. And don't forget, while the gear is limited, you are still allowed to use gear. You can't summon anybody though, so if I wanted to, I could put down a shield pad here, put down a health pad, and have those tick a little bit for me, give me a little bit of shields and health back and whatnot, or ammo if you need it, etc. See if I can get my charges back here. Some of these weak spots don't seem to want to count for me for the miter. There we go. I'd say I do love this weapon. Rogue Necramech here is being very rude to me. Drop that again. Yeah, this is pretty much how it goes. You see, we're almost there. Just got 5% left. You can just ignore the Necramechs pretty much as long as they're not killing you, because focusing on them will heavily reduce your kill time for the regular enemies that you can kill rapidly. So I wouldn't do that too much. Somebody's slowing me down. There we go. So now that I've killed enough enemies, you can see I can go to the Netracell, and I can open it up. Click on it again. You'll see the cool animation there of the reward rising out of the ground. And then once it's fully up here, you can break it. And you will get a guaranteed Entrati Landthorn. I got 2 because I have a resource booster on. Every single time that you do this. So you'll get either 5 or 10 with the booster on. If you do...
Okay.
Well, if you were to do 5 Netracell, if you do EDA, then you're not doing 5, but that's a different story. Let's go ahead and get to extraction here. And you can see the reward that I am not going to get, because I already did all my Netracells for the week. Fun fact for you. This extraction room is always the same, so it always has this slot right here. If you need Voca, check this room out. And there's been times that I found up to 3 Voca in this one room. Here's one, for example. And then to get out, you can hack this computer here. Door opens right up. Let's get out of here. So typically on this reward screen here, this would be where you would see where I got either my Archon Shard, my melee adapter, or one of the arcanes, for example. But like I said, I've done mine for the week, so that was just showcasing how to do this mission basically and how fast you can do it solo. So even solo, that was still less than 10 minutes, thanks to Speed Nova. Even with going down, again, because the combination of Blast, Gasp, and Matter Eye is so potent that it's really doesn't matter if you go down if you have the gear for it. And yeah, that's been a little video there on how to do Netracell, guys. Hopefully that was informative for you. If it was, consider dropping a like. If you haven't subscribed already, maybe do that as well. I do love making Warframe content for you all. I've been loving reading your guys' comments lately, and I also want to really say shout out for getting me past 200 subs sometime last night, apparently, while I was sleeping, so thank you all for that. If you've enjoyed it, let me know. Let me know what else you want to see. Is there any other kind of content in the game that you guys aren't exactly certain on how to do, or an efficient way to do it, especially if you're playing solo, for example? Just let me know down in the comments. And anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.